It's been over a year since the last DCEU film. They returned to theaters with Aquaman, so let's talk about it. After the events of Justice League, Arthur Curry, the Aquaman, must go to Atlantis to try and stop a war from breaking out between the people of the sea and the people on dry land. So the DCU is one of the most divisive franchises out there. Some people absolutely love it, and a bunch of people really don't like it. So go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Tell me your thoughts on Aquaman. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Was this a much needed course correction or just more of what they've given us before? I'd love to have a nice lively discussion about this one, yet respectful at the same time. With that said, let's get started talking about the good. The absolute best thing about this movie is that it is a lighthearted, fun, quick-moving adventure. It covers an enormous amount of ground. It's an origin story. It's underwater fantasy and mythology. It has globe-trotting relic hunting aspects to it. It has enormous armies battling each other. It's a movie that goes to a lot of different places, covers a lot of different ground, and it's entertaining throughout all of it. And a big part of what makes it so entertaining is that the action is handled very well. James Wan uses wide-angle lenses and long takes, so you can see the choreography, the special effects inside of it. Inside of the trailers, they showed this one long chase sequence where the shot is something like 30 seconds long. The whole movie has action sequences like that. Nicole Kidman even gets in on the action at one point in time. And so all throughout it, it's action-packed and it's all handled really well. And along those same lines, there's diversity inside of the actions. You have hand-to-hand fights, you have crazy sci-fi underwater creature battles, you have chases, you have spaceship type things that are underwater. There's a lot of diversity. All of it is handled well, shot well, has a high amount of energy to it. Even the dialogue scenes are shot in a dynamic way where the camera's moving and things happening in the background. So all of it is engaging. Another thing about this movie is that it is unashamedly cheesy and goofy. Now, some people might take that as a negative, but when you have a character like Aquaman that inherently has cheese and ham inside of it, that you just kind of have to embrace that. And because it does, it makes for a tonally consistent film that's just a lot of fun that they just go for it. And then you got to talk about the cast. The characters and the actors are just a lot of fun to see on screen. Jason Momoa as our lead just brings this fun-loving charisma to the screen. You feel like he's really this guy, and if you follow him on social media, you know he kind of is this kind of guy that loves going on these adventures, getting in little scuffles in bars and things like that. And so it feels like an authentic character, even though, you know, he's a half human, half Atlantean with superpowers, but he feels grounded because of the performance and the reality that Momoa brings into the role. Along the way, we get a bunch of other great performances from all of our side actors as well, whether you're talking about Willem Dafoe in this very complex role who's kind of playing different sides and all the politics of the film, or if you're talking about Patrick Wilson, who played a very different type of role from what we've seen him in before, and even Dolph Lundgren, I thought, held his own in this film. He's having quite the revival this year, getting in a couple of big blockbusters. Now, I don't want to say that these are all great characters that are nuanced and have worldview perspectives. It's not that kind of movie, but they're characters that fit the film that they were making, which is, as I said before, a lighthearted, fun, quick-moving adventure. And all throughout it, I was entertained, and the ultimate goal of a movie is to entertain. And so this movie did exactly what it was supposed to do. From there, let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. And the big thing that comes to mind is the humor. At times, it absolutely had me laughing. Throughout the movie, they put little sprinkles of humor throughout it. So it all has entertainment value, whether you laugh or not. But the reality is, a lot of the jokes don't land. A lot of the dialogue is kind of cringe-inducing. In particular, there's a sequence where they're traveling through the desert and it goes into like rom-com mode, and it did not work at all for me. Even kind of the music playing in the background had this rom-com vibe to it. And so while I appreciated that it always had a levity to it and they were trying to entertain through humor, a lot of it didn't work so well. And another mixed thing on this film is that it lacked any pretense or big, heavy, weighty ideas or themes. Several films in the DCU like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman had certain levels of deeper ideas that they were trying to explore and trying to deconstruct heroes and talk about tragedy and evil inside of the world. And so they were trying to do something bigger than just have a fun adventure. Now, Certainly, the results in those films were mixed to say the least. This movie has none of that. It's just trying to entertain you. For some of you, that's great news. I personally liked that the DCU films were trying to do something more, whether they failed at it or not. I can respect what they were trying to do, and so I felt there was something missing, but they replaced pretense with entertainment, so I don't want to complain too much. From there, let's move on to the bad. And the first thing that comes to mind is that the movie has 3 or 4 very specific plot points that are very reminiscent of Black Panther. If you've seen the trailer, you probably even know which plot points those are. And some people will respond back immediately, but it's from the comic books. That's his origin story. What do you want them to change the comics? Fair point, but that's a question of why it's so similar. It doesn't change the fact that a movie already came out this year that has some very specific plot points that are repeated inside of this film. The film overall goes in a very different direction. They're not actually similar films, but there are distinct plot beats that are very much aligned with each other. Another issue with the film is that because it moves so fast, a bunch of the moments don't hit the way they're supposed to, especially some of the emotional moments. You get to it and it just feels like it's like, oh, okay, that happened. Even as you go into the third act, which should have some of these big iconic power moments inside of it, and it should be the climax of the film, it just feels like the next thing that's happening, even though it's huge in scale. Likewise, even the stakes of the film don't feel as big as they actually are because the movie's just moving so fast that you don't have time to process and let sink in any of the emotion or size of what's happening. The movie also has several different exposition scenes, especially in the first half of the film, where characters come together basically to have a conversation where they exchange information that each person already had, just so that the audience can be informed of what we need to know the rules of how this world works. On a technical level, some of the underwater audio is difficult to understand. They use an effect to kind of change their voices when they're underwater, and it made it difficult for me to understand a few things that were said. But the strangest mistake with this movie is that they put pop music in the film. In particular, this Pitbull song that's his rendition of Toto's song Africa. As you're going through the movie, it just cuts to this song at one point in time. And it's distracting. It pulls you out of the film that you're playing this goofy song suddenly. And there's 2 or 3 different pop songs in the film, and each time it happened, it just seemed like a very odd musical choice. And lastly, I will say that the marketing definitely gave away too much about this movie. They gave enough information that you could start putting plot beats together, as well as revealing some of the big shots from the second half of the film that they just simply did not need to put into the marketing. So that's a little bit frustrating. But real quick, before I give you my final thoughts on the film and my score, go ahead and tell me what you thought about it down below in the comment section. Did you love it? Did you hate it? And everything in between. Also, after this video, check out this playlist up above with my best and most up-to-date DCU rankings. If you enjoyed this video, there's something in there that you will enjoy. So overall, this is a movie that I would say, while not great cinema, it's a very entertaining blockbuster. This is absolutely a Taco Bell type film for me, where you can stop and nitpick all kinds of details about it. Not everyone's going to enjoy it, but I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Since there's been a number of comparisons to Black Panther, I would say that Black Panther's the better made film, but I can see myself rewatching Aquaman a whole lot more. This movie worked for me on all the levels that matter, so I'm still gonna give it a B+ and give it an 8.6 on the entertainment scale. Be sure to check out that playlist to the left with my best and most up-to-date DCEU rankings. Thank you guys so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.